Hey guys, Second here, bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so today we're going to be doing the team building guide for the AGL GOKU EZA that is coming out tomorrow over on the global side. This video is going to be dropping at 7 PM UK time, so that means the event is coming out if you're watching this as soon as it drops. 12.5 hours from now, I will be live 12 hours from now on the dot, 7 AM to stream. Always go live a little bit before the events come out so we get time to set up, do our dailies, get our teams ready and all that good stuff. So this EZA is coming out. You should be used to this at this point, I guess, if you are a global player, right? It's the normal time that events come out. So 7:30 AM UK is like, I think it's just gone midnight PST, or actually it might be 11:30 PM on the late evening for Tuesday, and then very early in the morning EST. I think it's like, what, 2 AM, 2:30 AM. But either way, if you're seeing this notification or you're watching this video as soon as it goes up, it will be 12.5 hours after this. So the LR EZA against UI Goku, typical LR EZA stage, 10 stages, 3 stones each, so 30 stones for beating all the stages. There's only ever one mission in an LR EZA, which is to beat stage 7, and that gives you 3 stones, and there you go, that is 33 stones in total. You also get all of the medals, of course, to EZA the character, 5 Kais to get them up to SA25 straight away, and you get some AGL orbs as well, which is a nice little addition to the collection, because usually by the time you're EZAing a character, you've already got the copies of them, right, and you've already filled out their hidden potential system, but a few extra orbs for the collection is always nice to have. Now, with an LR EZA, legendary power, having that link active, so having as many LRs as possible, allows you to do bonus damage. So technically you can use any LRs regardless of category, and they are able to do damage to Goku or extra damage to UI Goku. However, like a normal EZA, we do have a weakness category, which is in this case Space Traveling Warriors, and that is essentially for defense. So Space Traveling Warriors characters will take less damage. So, for example, you could bring, like, even though, well, I mean, he has guard, so it doesn't matter, but you could bring Beast Gohan into this event, even though he's STR, and he will take extra damage because he is not a Space Traveling Warriors character. Now, obviously, there are sometimes, if you get good rotations or you've got LRs that can dodge or have really high damage reduction and stuff like that, you can get away with using LRs not on the correct category, and you can brute force through some EZAs with just strong teams of LRs. But the easiest way to do it, make sure you get the stage done without any hiccups, losing any stages in between, all that stuff, is to ideally just use the correct category right off the bat, if you have the units to do so. So, as I say, for this one, it is Space Traveling Warriors. We are going to take a look at the category, and as always, for my team building guides, I'm going to give you my top picks and honourable mentions for building a team for this event. If there's any units you think I missed out or should have talked more about, do let me know down below in the comment section. So if you find this guide helpful at all, do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, we are going to start off straight away with a couple of potential leaders. So when it comes to Space Traveling Warriors, only really a very limited lineup in terms of the category itself. We have the AGL Frieza, who leads Planetary Destruction or Space Traveling Warriors, and then gives an extra 30% to Inhuman Deeds or Terrifying Conquerors. Of course, for Global, he came out not super long before the anniversary and was one of those banners that I feel like a lot of people probably did not summon on, and of course he has not returned yet on Global as well. So I do understand it's very likely that a lot of people out there won't have this guy. Depending on your team build, he of course could make a good friend leader to bring. He can do a lot of damage. He's got a decent 200% leader. Space Traveling Warriors and Terrifying Conquerors has a huge amount of crossover. So it's a very straightforward 200% team for something like this, right? People's complaints of Frieza when he came out was his team wasn't super great for the very difficult end game content, but obviously for Extreme Z battles, they are not on that same level of difficulty as like a red zone stage or something, right? So Frieza's team can be perfectly good, even if you're bringing Space Traveling Warriors only getting the 170 lead. That would be perfectly fine. You're fighting a Pure Saiyan enemy, so we do get an additional super attack. So Frieza can be pretty good, even though he is only a TUR. I mentioned this in all my LR EZA guides, but I have beaten LR EZAs with full teams of TURs before. You don't have to have the legendary power link active, it just makes it a lot faster, as the units do a lot more damage. So next up, we also have the physical Turles. I didn't bother giving a mention to the STR Bojack because he is type disadvantage. Doesn't have his EZA yet, so he's very, very outdated. But this guy, Space Traveling Warriors or Pure Saiyans, and then Planetary Destruction or Low Class Warrior, you can make a pretty good setup for him, especially with a lot of the Extreme Saiyan characters. So Turles can be pretty decent. He infinitely stacks attack and recovers HP on Super. There is a Goku family enemy, so he will be getting his entrance animation and therefore the buff, all Extreme Allies 3 key and 18% attack for the whole fight. So double Turles leads, you will get both their intro active, so the entire team of extreme characters will be getting 6 key and 36% attack buff, which certainly can be very useful. You could basically just run double Turles and then a full team of LRs, and they're going to be getting a lot of extra attack power. And then with that legendary power link active, they're going to be able to do a lot of damage. So Turles definitely can be a very good option. Both of these guys, of course, do have the Big Bad Bosses link as well. So there's a lot of potential here for doing some decent damage, or at least providing links to some of these LRs, potentially as slot 3 floaters while they pick up legendary power with the other characters. Now, when it comes to characters to put on the team, we'll talk about some of the secondary leader skills. Like LR Full Power Frieza, for example. This guy, when there is a Goku enemy, you get a guaranteed crit. He also gets extra attack against superclass enemies, so he can be pretty decent here. His leader skill, Namek Saga, is not really much use to us here, but Sworn Enemies, of course, is basically all Friezas, and a lot of them are on Space Traveling Warriors. So you could make a team with this guy, but more often than not, he's just going to be best as a unit on the team, be able to do a lot of damage. And then, of course, you can use his active skill, which does a pretty solid amount of damage when there's one enemy who is superclass and HP is 30% or less. Very often this means that if you get a full power Frieza on the turn, once the enemy has dropped to low HP, you don't even have to worry about playing out the turn. You can just use the active skill and kill the last part of the boss's HP off with the active skill attack. So AGL Full Power Frieza, definitely very useful. Obviously that active skill as well will be a guaranteed crit because we are fighting a Goku. So definitely can be very, very useful. Remember, in EZAs you can't use same name characters, but realistically the only other Full Power Frieza, you've got the LR STR one. And I don't really mention any STR units in this guide just because Goku is AGL. So AGL Full Power Frieza, definitely the one to go to if you want a Full Power Frieza on the team. Next up we have the AGL LR Baby. So this guy, he got a very good EZA. When you're fighting a Pure Saiyan enemy, he does get extra stats as well as extra crit chance. So he can be very good. If you're on low HP, he gets dodge chance, which is obviously good, because when you're on low HP, that's when you really need those defensive abilities to start coming in clutch for you. And of course, he does have the Giant Ape condition, when HP is 40% or less once only. It's not an active skill, so it will just happen. But if you are finding that you're struggling in the later stages, then having this guy being on like the second or third rotation can be very, very useful. Because you get the giant form out, you get to do a bunch of extra damage, and then obviously if the enemy super attacks you during that time, they then can't super attack you afterwards. So that could definitely come in clutch for beating some of these later stages. His leader skill, Artificial Life Form, is not really great for this. He's just a good unit to bring on the team. Then next up we have the Tech Giant Ape Vegeta. He leads in Human Deeds or Giant Ape Power. So I mean, for Inhuman Deeds wise, you could use him as a leader if you needed to. He does have type advantage, but his leader skill only 4 key and 150 to stats. But in terms of being a unit on the team, if you're running some of these other Extreme Saiyan characters, then he could be pretty good. Because you're fighting an enemy whose name includes Goku, he gets his entrance animation, which means he gets extra key and an extra attack buff. So with legendary power, if he's getting hit first in slot 1, he can do a pretty significant amount of damage. He also has a Giant Ape power, a Giant Ape mode ability. His is an active skill, so it can be activated when HP is 40% or less. So combining him with Baby, having a couple of great ape turns on the team to give you some free damage and then protection from potential supers could be very, very useful. So this guy, if you are running some other Extreme Saiyans for him to be run with, could certainly be very, very good. So one thing actually is it's interesting that Nappa and Vegeta are on Space Traveling Warriors, and I completely forgot to open the page for them, because obviously if we're going to use Giant Ape Vegeta, then of course Nappa and Vegeta are a really, really good unit to run alongside them. Because, yeah, these guys can be really useful in, like, the World Tournament and stuff with their 12-key AoE super, but their 18-key massively raises attack and defense for 1 turn, does mega colossal damage to the single enemy. So because we're in an event where there is only 1 enemy, then obviously they can still be very good, and the combo of those two together, they share a decent amount of links, and so they will be able to do a solid amount of damage. Nappa has the active skill, which you can use on turn 4 from the start of battle, so if they start on turn 2, and then they're on turn 4, Nappa's active skill gives him a guaranteed dodge. He does do less damage because he gets the attack nerf, but guaranteed dodge will be very useful. Okay, so next up we have the LR Bojack and his crew, full power Bojack, parentheses, Galactic Warrior. This guy, if you're running Space Traveling Warriors on the team with him, he does change Tech Orbs to Rainbow, which can be very useful in facilitating Ki for all of these LRs. He's pretty useful on the team. You know, he's dropped off in terms of difficult content and stuff now, but he's a character that you could easily shove on the team as like a floating unit. Make sure you're leaving some tech orbs the turn before he's going to come onto the rotation, and then it's just going to help out the rest of your LRs get their 18-key supers, and obviously he's another body on the team that has legendary power. So if you get a starting rotation where you do get a TUR, if you are running one of them, you've just got another few LRs on the team, so you can try and get those legendary power links active nice and early on. So Bojack can still be very, very useful. He also does raise extreme class allies attack by 40% for 1 turn. So if you get into an interesting enough scenario, like if there's no attacks in slot 1, or there's a gap in like slot 2 where there's no attacks, you could put him in there, have that legendary power link active, and then make it so the unit in slot 3 does a bunch of extra damage. He is another character that has big bad bosses, so that can certainly be very useful. Then we have the free-to-play Ginu Force units, both of them, in fact. Well, actually, I didn't open the tech one, I guess. Both the free-to-play Ginu Force units are support units. They're LRs. I mean, they don't get their own full buffs because of Ginu Force allies on the team, but they're basically just there to provide a little bit of support, to provide legendary power. Obviously, the tech one has type advantage as well, so very straightforward. And yet another one of these units that is Space Traveling Warriors and Terrifying Conquerors. There's so much crossover between those two categories that it's very easy to build a full team that gets the full 200% with both of those two categories combined. So, as I said, you don't have to use full LRs. There are some TURs that can definitely be very useful. King Vegeta is a fantastic banner unit, and then if you are going to be running any of the Vegetas we mentioned, it's only a unit whose name includes Vegeta. So obviously if you have LR Nappa and Vegeta, or that Tech Nappa and Vegeta that we showed, or that we will show, they count as well. So he supports all pure Saiyan allies, so if you are running this setup with a bunch of these extreme Saiyans, Turles, the Vegeta and Nappa, the Great Ape Vegeta, stuff like that, he can be a very good support unit. With a Vegeta on rotation, if you've picked up the tech AGL orbs for him, he can tank even like some of the harder hitting bosses in the endgame content. So he will certainly be able to hold his own here. Even if you throw him on the team just to be a floating support for some of these extreme pure Saiyan characters, he could certainly be very useful. Then we have the AGL Turles. Now, obviously, as we mentioned, you can't use the same name characters. So if you're using physical Turles, you can't use the AGL one. But if you don't have the physical one, because we are fighting a superclass enemy, he is giving 3 key and 40% to attack and defense, which is good. And then, of course, he does the 30% chance of activating the Tree of Might boost for 3 turns when HP is 80% or less. So if you have him coming in on turn 2 and you've lost a bit of HP, you have the chance to get the transformation into the boosted Turles, who can do a pretty decent amount of damage, still supports allies with Ki. But, I mean, ideally you want him on the team to be the support. And it can help out having him floating in slot 3, having your main rotation be 2 LRs together for legendary power, and then he gives them the buff. Then we have the Vegeta and Nappa that I mentioned. These guys have a different name to the AGL LR, so they can all be run together. They guard when there's a Terrifying Conqueror ally attacking in the same turn, or Pure Saiyans, so any of these characters we've talked about so far be very good for their builds. If you put them in slot 3, then they're getting extra stats, they get damage reduction, obviously they have a chance to do an additional super as well. So these guys can be very good on the team if you want to run that kind of full Extreme Saiyans build up. Then we have the Tech free-to-play 4-form Cooler. This guy is a Terrifying Conqueror's support character. So because of all that crossover with Space Traveling Warriors and Terrifying Conquerors, you could throw him on the team and just have him floating to be a support and give some of these rotations of LRs a little bit of extra juice as well to do more damage. Then we have the Dodoria. This guy really is useful the most on the team when you're running a Frieza. because he has guard, he has additional attacks, he's supporting inhuman deeds, which obviously some of the Friezas are, and of course the LR Vegeta and Nappa as well. So this guy can be pretty good on the team depending on who else you're running. We also have the Chilai. So Chilai, not going to share a lot of links with people, but she is supporting all allies 3 key, attack and defense 39%, and then she does have a scouter effect and then dodge. So the scouter effect can certainly come in very useful. These last couple of units really all just good sort of third slot floats that you build your team to be 2 rotations of 2 LRs, and then you can just throw a bunch of these characters on here and they'll be providing support and making those LRs with the legendary power link active hitting even harder. So Chilai can be useful, and then last but not least we have the physical Bojack from the World Tournament. This guy with space traveling warriors allies on the team or even on the turn gets a whole bunch of buffs including support, great chance to crit, guards when all allies are extreme space traveling warriors characters. So if you've got a full extreme space traveling warriors team, which you likely are for this setup, then yeah, this guy gets a decent amount of buffs, gives a decent bit of support, greatly raises attack and defense on his super. So again, all of these kind of TURs we've mentioned here at the end are pretty much just to be floats to help buff up your LRs. So if we go back to space traveling warriors, you can see, like, we didn't mention Bojack. I mean, you got the Ginu Force and Turles character like supports. I guess if you are running physical Turles, then running like Amand and Raisin can be pretty good on the team as well. Not really mentioning any STR characters, not to say that some of them couldn't be useful, but they're obviously going to be relying on crits in order to do damage. So I think for the most part we've picked out the decent units here, because like obviously the new LR Jiren is not out on global, neither is the EZA for the tech one. The Ribrienne trio, they don't really fit in with the team super well, but they could be useful. Ginu Force, obviously, again, unless you're running a lot of Ginu Force characters, you're not running a lot of special pose characters. So I think we've pretty much covered all the top picks and honorable mentions. But as I said at the start, if there are any characters that you think I missed or I should have talked about more, why they would be good for this event, do let us know down below in the comment section. And of course, also let me know down there what your team build is going to be for the AGL UI Goku Extreme Z battle. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Master Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.